anybody else or whatever it is, teen angst, sometimes that doesn't actually translate, as teen angst. Sometimes it's actually like, hey, pay attention to me. Hey, it's actually a cry for help. But because I feel teenagers not necessarily know how to express how they feel, so they suppress. Or
there's a question in there somewhere, but we got to dig it out.
They suppress themselves. So actually, I want to know, what is probably the main cause of teenage depression nowadays? It's different from when we were growing up, right?
Yeah, I think so. But never mind. Let's get the clinical perspective.
Thank you so much to Terence and Zoe for having me today. In talking about any mental health issues, and we're talking about depression specifically today, I like to always use this one concept we have in psychiatry. It's called the stress diathesis model. So basically, people don't just get depressed because something bad happened in their life, losing someone they love, or that kind of thing. But normally there is some diathesis, or what we call as predisposition or vulnerability factors to it. For example, and couple that with having any current stress or triggers, and that this will result into
so this means, hang on, let me just stop you there. Predisposition mean in childhood they already have some factors that have led to this.
Yes. And a number of things. And if you want to categorize them into maybe three umbrella categories, large categories. So number one is the biological. So everybody knows, and I think it's quite an established fact that a mental illness has some genetic predisposition to it. So if you have parents who have mental illness, so chances are some genes might be inherited to you, and you are at increased risk of getting mental illness. That is in terms of the biology, and in terms of the psychological factors, this depends on the environment and the way they are brought up. For example, some teenagers, they have these problems with emotion regulation, for example. So they have this tendency or this negative attribution to certain negative events in their life. For example, like, if my teacher scolds me, that must be because my teacher hates me, or that kind of thinking, for example. That is psychological. And also the social or environmental factors. For example, peer victimization, bullying. When you show your phone just now, maybe at some point, cyberbullying. When we were young, when I was young, if you got bullied at school, for example, you go home and you're into the arms of people who are loving, and forgiving. But nowadays, not so much. You get bullied in school, and you go home. Now cyberbullying. So basically, the increases of peer victimization, and then you're right. Early adverse childhood events, being neglected, having witnessed or part of marital discord, domestic violence, for example. And then members of the what I would call as a sexual minority, teens who identify themselves as trans or lesbian or homosexual. So these definitely put them at increased risk of being bullied and a lot of social sufferings.
Okay, Doctor, you've underlined a lot of issues there, and because all these issues are now on the table, right? So we're dealing with a world that has accepted most of these issues to be there, present. With all these issues now on the table, how much more of an increase do you see in your line of work when it comes to teenage depression and anxiety year on year?
Yes, you're right. We definitely see an increased number of children, adolescents, who are even medicated at some point, because of just how bad those depressions are. Maybe before this, I know at an earlier stage of depression, maybe we can actually mobilize all these social supports. Counseling is enough in school, but nowadays it gets worse, up to the point that teenagers are starting to take antidepressants, So I'm definitely seeing more number.
What's the percentage of increase like? Can you give us a figure?
I don't have the exact figure, but just from my professional observation, it is on an increasing trend.
Yeah, and I think WHO also came out with a figure recently. It says half of all mental health conditions start by the age of 14, but most cases are undetected and untreated. And
that's the WHO.
Yeah, WHO actually came out with this. And I actually want to ask you, when they say that it's undetected or untreated, how do we, or how parents at home, or how even peers, right, their friends, can differentiate between this teenager or this person is just feeling sad or is feeling disappointed, heartbroken, versus actually feeling depressed and feeling, a panic attack, anxiety, something that's more severe. So how can they separate these two emotions or these two, I guess, things?
Yeah. That is a very good question because sometimes people start questioning us. So is it not normal, for if you have an exam tomorrow, for you to have insomnia, for example, or stress, if you have problems with your boyfriend or girlfriend, for example? So isn't that normal part of growing up? But basically, when institutions like WHO, for example, they come up with diagnosis on statistic or numbers, they normally rely on certain set of diagnostic criteria. For example,
right.
The one that we use in Malaysia is the DSM-5, which was created by the American Psychiatric Association. So normally, if we want to say or safely assume that this is a proper clinical depression compared to stresses that they have, normal part of growing up and things like that, normally it will come together with severe psychosocial impairment, in the sense that the depression or the negative emotion is so severe up to the point that they can't function what is expected of them, to go to school, to function as part of the family member, to have a healthy relationship with the parents, peers, and things like that. So it's up to the point that they start to have all this social impairment. So then maybe we can consider depression at the point.
So I'm going to speak for myself. As I remember growing up, I had a strong family support system, and I also had a hint of religiosity in my life. So whatever problems and issues, I knew I had these to fall back on. Do you think that, and you've also mentioned this, broken homes being one of the main reason, and also perhaps a loss of religiosity in society could be one of the factors that these fallbacks now no longer exist?
I think that's quite a bit. It's quite difficult to really say for certain that we have lost religiosity in our
maybe
society. Diminish. Maybe I would say it gets extreme. If people when they are religious, they become extremely religious. Or when they forfeit or decide, religion is not important in my life, so they completely abandon religion. But you're right. Actually, when in the West, when they transition from the Victorian era to the industrial revolution, industrial age, one of the things, one of the theory postulated as to why people are getting more anxious, more neurotic, is because of the shift of or the missing structure in society. For example, in the Victorian era, you used to have church or family, extended family. These are very well established institutions where people always have something to rely on, to fall back onto, whenever they are. But as we get more westernized, as we get more as we progress more industrialized, so I think we model after the Western way of society, the individualism, so now, so we no longer, we are attached to our family to some degree, but as you can see, most people are alone nowadays, they don't know who to talk to, they are glued to their phones, but I would say very much individual on most part.
Glued to their phones, but really connected to nobody.
Yes, exactly.
So, we're talking about technology and how I like that you talked about how the Victorian era is different from when they made their transition. I guess they did lose some form of pillars to fall back on, right?
Yes.
And I remember back in school, I don't know about each and every school, but my school had a counseling teacher. The problem with the counseling teacher, no offense, is that she didn't do any counseling. When students came up to her seeking for advice, seeking for help, and often the way that she talked to her students was very belittling. So students had no place to fall back on. Let's say they don't have tight family connection, they maybe aren't so religious, or they don't believe in a faith or whatever, and they depend on school counselors, right? Do you have any suggestions or advice for schools out there who have counseling teachers that are similar to that they don't take teenage problems as seriously as they should?
Well, the thing about our how it should be our mental health service, the direction that we should be taking as a nation is to actually have mental health services at all levels. It doesn't have to be oh, I'm depressed, I'm stressed, I should go straight to the psychiatry doctor. I don't think that's healthy. So I think it should be covered at all bases, and especially so in schools. So when these problems should first be detected, I think so. That's why I think counsellors are very important. But having said that, when we talk about counselling, of course, I don't know, maybe most of us will understand counselling as people giving advice, practical solutions to problems or that kind of thing. But the essence of a very good psychotherapy, or what counsellor normally gives, is supportive therapy, is someone to actually listen. Because I think the complaint of youth nowadays is that they are not being listened to, they are not being heard. So sometimes if we can actually stop offering so quick a solution, but just try to understand. I don't think it's limited to counsellors only, but I think parents nowadays, they have this understanding. Oh, when I used to grow up, I was like this and this, and you should do this and this. And when we do that, we stop listening to the youth. So I think a good counselling should be someone who can provide good listening to the youth problems.
And I think the issues of the world today also affect our young people. I recently had an exchange with someone on Twitter, and he was a young adult, and he felt that he was in a pressurized situation, that he was kind of locked into something that he couldn't control, and it was a very depressing state. But I do believe it starts younger than that, and perhaps identifying these issues can help us address them. But do we have the manpower to do that? Because we can't rely on teachers for everything. If teenagers are exposed to their parents and to their teachers physically in school, it's not the teacher's place to identify mental health issues, or is it now?
Yes, I agree with you. Maybe, I don't know, maybe one school probably at most they have one or
one
counselor. So I don't think that's enough, to cover like 500 or 1,000 children in one school, right? But I think what a lot of mental health advocates are doing nowadays is just to promote awareness about mental health issues, signs, symptoms to look to, if you have depression, and to empower these teens, young people to come out and look for help. I think that's a good thing to start, a good place to start, just by making more people aware about mental health issues and try to take control of their own mental health problems and start looking for help if they feel they need to, and also looking out for your peers and friends and start looking for help if they feel they need to, and also looking out for your peers and friends if you start noticing problems in them.
Yeah, I think friends are, especially like in your teenage years, your adolescent years, we were very sensitive. It was a very sensitive age because like for girls, we're dealing with hormonal changes. For guys, same thing. So I want to know, actually, do depression actually affect the female? I read this somewhere that depression actually affects a female more than it affects the male. Is that true? And if it is, as a peer, what can I do? To your advice on a friend who I've detected, like, hey, I know she's depressed, but we're the same age and I don't really know what's going on. What's the best way for me to approach her?
So two questions.
Yeah, two questions. So whether or not it's true, depression actually affects the female gender a lot more, and what can we do as peers once we identify our friend is possibly depressed, anxious, or even suicidal?
All right. Okay. So for the first question, whether or not depression affects female more than male, it depends on which study you're looking at. I think some of the studies, that probably the one that you might read is the one from Europe. Again, sometimes it may differ from region to region, society to society. But I think the approximate figure is about 2 to 1. So 2 depressed female to every 1 depressed male. I think that's roughly there. But there's one more recent studies when they did it in China. So the figure is about the same, 1 female to 1 male. So I think culture and society definitely play some part contributing to that difference in ratio, and also just the fact that in a female there's a lot more, especially coming from a more conservative society, I think I would say female experiences more life events compared to male. You know, first menarche, first time getting period, so that is very scary. I don't know, to a lot of young girls, and then first sexual experience, and then marriage, and then just the experience of giving birth. It can be traumatic to a lot of women. You know, the pain of giving birth, and then the responsibility that society expects from them, juggling family and work and that kind of thing. So I would say a lot of life events, and then when they reach 40, 50, and then menopause, another major life event. So basically a female would go through a lot of life events more compared to male. So I think that in itself is very much contributing to more stress in life.
All we have to worry about is health.
Okay. And yeah. So what to do if you?
If I've detected my peer or maybe my best friend, somebody close, somebody not even close, is depressed, and I'm actually quite worried. But I'm also at the same age.
So what do I do?
So yeah, what should I do? I can't be telling like, hey, your mom, dad, she's depressed. That's not the best approach, I think.
I think the best thing to do would be, you know, if someone close to you is having any symptoms of depression, the best thing to do, I think, would be just to make that person know that you are there. You know, if sometimes they may not be so open to share their problems. You know, some things might be too sensitive or frightening if people hear about it. For example, you know, telling people that you're suicidal is not an easy thing to do. Right? You know, I think it takes courage, and you know, just the stigma that they face. You know, the fear of being judged. You know, people are not religious, or you're going to hell, and they kind of, that kind of language. Yeah, it's not easy for them to open up. So sometimes at first try, it may not be successful. So what I would recommend is just letting them know that I'm here. You may not be ready to talk about it now, but I'm here if you decide to share anything with me, that kind of thing. And if you think that we can share, and then we can share some advice, ask them first if it's okay for us to share some advice on that kind of thing. Sometimes I would say that, you know, a lot of people, they do well only by having someone listening to them, non-judgmentally, in a caring way. And if anything is too much and there is some safety concerns, this is a time when, you know, you want to inform their close family members or advise them to get help from professional counselors, psychologists, or even doctors in psychiatry.
Now, this conversation takes me back to one of the topics we had with Elvira Arul on the show. Yes. So if you go back, I know you can because we have My Clicks on RTM. So go back to My Clicks and watch that one as well, and you'll get, you know, kind of a more complete story of mental health. Because we're focusing on teenagers today, I want to understand also how a teenage person watching this right now can take some positive steps to basically empower themselves to take charge of their own mental condition, or is it something that they need help to do? Can they do it themselves?
Yes, I think this is one of the barriers of seeking help that we have recognized, which is, you know, because that person is a teenager, so, you know, legally, so they are under their guardian, that kind of thing. So sometimes parents may not agree to them seeking help from mental health professionals, you know, because, you know, out of the fear that, and then my son would be medicated, and then people will call them, you know, crazy and that kind of language. So I think again, you know, if they cannot do it, or they don't feel safe enough to talk to their parents, they can do it in school. You know, if let's say they feel that counselors are more helpful, or friends, and I think if they want to take charge of their own mental health, they should be informed about what is it that is normal and what is that is normal. They have to know that suicidal thoughts are not normal, and they should try to actually find someone who they can trust the most to communicate these ideas and see how it goes from there. And but I still think that, you know, try to talk to someone who you think that you can trust the most.
And that is a commodity. Someone you can trust the most. That is a commodity in today's day and age. You know, in your teenage years, especially, you're forming those bonds and friendships. So it is quite a challenging time to be a teenager in 2020.
Exactly, especially with COVID, especially with, you know, not going to school, not really seeing your friends and all that. It's going to take a mental toll on you. But again, if you guys are, you know, facing any of the symptoms that the doctor has actually mentioned here today, if you know a friend who is going through a similar situation, please do, you know, lend an ear, lend a shoulder.
Yeah, let them know you're here.
Let them know you're there. You are here.
To listen to them.
Exactly. So thank you again, doctor, for being on the show. We are actually going to chat with you off the camera while we go to Mio in his latest What's Up.
Yes, Mio's gone all bate and